Hello and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers. Before I introduce my amazing, incredible guest, I should have put her in the green room. Sorry, before, but I just thought of something here. As you all know, I talk about my community a lot, and I talk about the homelessness situation that we are facing, and now that we're going on our fourth or fifth lockdown as Wednesday, I can just imagine what it's going to be like after Wednesday. So that being said, we are having a special episode Thursday night with Dave Moda, who is heading up um, a what do you call that? This is why I wanted a flyer, but I didn't get one in time. On January 15th, we are hosting a sleep out. And in that sleep out, he's going to be giving information on what he has for to rectify some of our problem here in Windsor, Ontario. And he's going to have a model of the small house that he has built. And our goal is to build as many as possible and get people off the street. So, totally something spur of the moment that came up, and I was just sharing it tonight so that Thursday night we will be having him on. So if you have any questions for Dave, please feel free to send them ahead of time or put them in the comments. And with that, sorry, normally I don't normally do that, Ingor, so that's something that's something completely different. And I am just super excited to have my girlfriend here, Ingor, on the show. She is an amazing person, and she has her own show on Friday mornings, which I was a shout out guest this past Friday. Um, but Ingrid loves God and people. She is passionate about serving others and helping them to succeed in life. She is known for many as a storyteller and power connector, as she uses storytelling to share her thoughts of ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Okay, sorry. I knew I was going to massacre it. Positive gratitude, kindness, stepping out of your comfort zone, and also highlights inspiring change makers, aiding others to connect with people and resources to help them flourish. And that's absolutely 100% true. Inger has connected me with so many different people. And if you don't know Inger, you should. She is definitely very much on LinkedIn and very much on Facebook, and she is a power connector. And I'm just so happy to have you here tonight, Inger. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction and thank you for having me here. It's a privilege.
Absolute pleasure. So we have a little bit of love in the comments here. We have Melody joining us from Massachusetts. And I know that a bunch of others will be joining us at any moment. This house is usually rocking packed, so I know that it will be again tonight. So, Inger, tell us a little bit about your overcoming story.
Wow. Um I I was born with congenital hip dysplasia. So what that means is that both of my hips were displaced at birth. Um and they didn't discover it until I was about 3 months old. Where upon like they when they discovered it, they decided to go with a course of action to try to rectify it. But most people that know about that condition know that those intervention procedures that they tried to use didn't work, and they only know that now because after years of trying, right? So basically, what they did was they put my body in a plaster of Paris. So, like when you have a broken bone and they set your arm in plaster of Paris, they set my body in plaster of Paris with just an opening for me to be able to wear a diaper.
Wow.
And I was 3 months old at the time. And then, um, obviously, like when your baby grows, they and babies grow fairly quickly. So by the time I think I must have been maybe 2 months after that, like I was my parents were at the end of their tether because I would constantly cry, and I was set to sit up. So like I have pictures of myself in this cast, full body, like from my torso right down to my toes. um, and just sit like that so that your hips can they're trying to have an intervention and try to correct correct your the dysplasia, but it didn't work. And I remember my mom shared a story of like one day she and my dad took me to see the orthopedic surgeon to get this removed, and he said no, we can't because it's not time to remove it yet. And they said, but she's constantly crying because she's uncomfortable. And he wouldn't. My parents went home and they tried to saw it off,
Oh,
but it didn't work. So I think probably about by the time I was 6 months old, they had it removed completely, but it didn't work. And so I grew up with this condition, um, and it caused me to limp. And you know how kids are, right? So with me limping, I was different, right? Um, I think, you know, I was always I was always aware of it. I can tell you that, because um, I had to go for X-rays every year and go and see the orthopedic surgeon every single year to see if there was any improvement and to assess my body. And I was always picked on by kids because of the limping. Um, and if if we were playing in the playground and they were dividing into teams, I was the last one to be picked.
right,
Um, but I used to say, but why God, why me? And I remember thinking, one day God actually showed me that I shouldn't ask that question because everybody's circumstances are different. Just because I'm there in that situation, it does seem like this is so huge, but um, you know what? It's part of life, and we all have difficult circumstances to face, and we just have to overcome. And for me, my overcomer story has to do with that, but it's how I overcame my circumstances, not physically, but in my mind.
right,
Because when I realized that everybody has something that they need, that they face in life, whether it is obesity or being differently bodied or being blind or deaf, we have to realize that um, you won't get more than what you're supposed to, because these are the things that mold you into who you need to be, right? And I wouldn't be the person that I am today if I didn't face those circumstances.
right.
So
I love that you said that. You just said so much here, and there's so much that I can relate to with your story. And first of all, I want to say that I can't imagine as a parent how hard that would have been for your parents to go 3 months seeing their baby in that much, being in, whether it be
yeah,
discomfort or pain or um, did you well, I mean, you were 3 months old. I'm not sure if you would remember if there was a lot of pain at that time or just basically mostly discomfort from being held up like that the entire time.
I don't remember it at all. And I actually have a good memory. Like I have memories from before I was 2 years old. I do remember certain things happening. Um, but yeah, I don't remember that. So thank God.
I was going to say thank goodness for that, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that you said kids can be cruel, and I totally understand. Like, part of my story, bullied all through school for my weight, so I totally get it. And you see these people now afterwards, and you're like, okay, you could say something back to them, but we don't because we're better than that. And, like you said, everybody goes through something, and we all go through something. So I think being kind at all times is definitely key, like you said. So I love that you said that. And so
Yes.
how would you say, now I know you said the overcoming is in the mind, which totally, the mind is 100% where it's at, and if you can overcome that, then you can basically overcome anything, as you
Mhm.
know, right? And
Mhm.
so tell us more about that. How did you have to overcome in your mind these situations, and being bullied and things like that?
Um, my mom used to say something that was so, it really just drove me. And she didn't specifically say it to me, but I've heard her, and I heard her like growing up. I heard her say that is, you get to choose whether your circumstances make you bitter or better, and the choice is really yours. So for me, I think I must have been like grade 6, because I excelled academically, right? So the more I was bullied, the more I just um, flourished on my own, and kind of allowed myself to shift my focus that way. Um, and I remember feeling, I felt so persecuted, thinking like, you know, um, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to respond to that, because I really don't want to retaliate. And I used to think, of things to say in response, but I would never do it. And I remember thinking, actually, I met a girl who was in a wheelchair, and I had an epiphany. And the epiphany was like, I can at least walk. She can't, right? Like, so for me to say, why me? Why not me?
Right.
Because we all face things, right? So after that, I decided to change the way that I allowed myself to feel in my heart. And instead of feeling angry and in my mind concocting these scenarios where I would be like standing up to the bully or whatever, I actually realized that I should feel sorry for them because they had no empathy. And, you know, who knows what they're going through. So I just made myself think like, like I'm going through this, they're going through something else, right? So who knows what they're going through.
Exactly.
And to me, I thought, one of the lessons that I learned from that, looking back now, is that hurt people hurt people. So they were probably going through something on their own.
That is so true. And, I didn't learn that at an early age. I was just a hurt girl back then, and I stuck to myself, and I lashed out on occasion. I'm not going to say that I didn't, because hurt people. And it wasn't until I overcame my abusive relationship in my later years that I realized, okay, wait a minute. You know, Obviously, there's something inside of him that is damaged or not right in order for him to act out the way he would. And when you're in that situation and you're being bullied or belittled, or things like that, you don't really have a tendency to think of that right in that moment. But
Mm,
good for you for not spewing out. Honestly, when I was young, I didn't have the filter. Sometimes I still don't, but I'm a lot better than I was. And Melanie says, the bigger the struggles, the bigger your purpose. So that
yeah.
is so true. Um, and I love how you incorporated, God with that. And, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Well, I have an added thing to that with him,
Mm,
because you can't go through what we've all experienced in life, and without the support from him, and in my opinion.
So right.
um, and I love the fact that you said that, and it is so true. um, have you always had God in your life, or is that a new thing, or?
Um, yes, I grew up in a Christian home. Um, I the I gave my heart to the Lord. I think I was maybe 7, and then uh, I think I rededicated my life when I was 15. That's when I had like my own experience with Him.
Mhm.
So yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't have. We came back. We're an Anglican background, but we didn't go to church at all. So when I got left my abusive relationship is when I met God. So I always, and then of course I started going to church, and everybody's like, "Oh, why can't I have that normal life?" And it wasn't until somebody said to me, "Well, what is normal?" that I quit putting my own family down, because my family is quite eccentric. I won't tell you what we did on a Sunday morning one day, but it was one of those families where love is um, always present in our home. But it wasn't until I became saved and dedicated my life to Jesus that things started to shift, and then it shifted in my entire household. Like, it's my parents started, and now I'm working on my brother. God's
But
working on my brother.
yes. And I have to say that, you know what? Yes, that person was right. Like, what is normal? And then, the other thing is your relationship with God is very personal. It's between you and Him only.
Yep.
So, like it's somebody can have, like, they can grow up in a home where, they go to church, but then they choose not to follow Him, right? Like, it's really a very personal choice.
Exactly, and you're right. It is a personal choice,
Mhm.
for sure. Alrighty. So, how did you end up having your own business? Because you're a coach as well, too, right?
Yes. Um, it took me a long time, actually. I It's so crazy. I studied IT and industrial sociology.
Right.
Um, but I became an executive assistant because I love people. I just love to see them flourish and for to see them succeed. And yeah, I became an executive assistant, and I stayed there in the corporate world for almost 20 years. And I say I was stuck in the corporate world. I really was. Um, so in 2018, I lost my corporate job due to no fault of my own. And prior to that, I felt I can hear feedback. I think is
Hold
your
on. Sorry, I was starting to page so
okay.
get the ball rolling. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So yeah, I lost my job in 2018, and then but before that, I really wanted to become an entrepreneur, but I was afraid to fail, and I call it my Jonah story because I felt like God was calling me to entrepreneurship for a long time. But I just didn't want to go to Nineveh. I was so afraid because, growing up, um, success didn't look like entrepreneurship. Um, you know, you go to university, you study, you get a good job, and then, you raise a family, and that's what success was, in my mind, right? So entrepreneurship had nothing to do with that. And I think it was part of, just a mindset shift that I had to go through before I became an entrepreneur. But anyway, in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, I said, okay, Lord, I surrender and I'll start my business. So I registered my business at the end of July. And yeah, 2 weeks later, I started working with my first client.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what do you like best about what you do right now?
Um, being heard and seen. That's what I like best. Because working as an executive assistant, you're not really heard or seen. You're busy doing everything in the background. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, being heard and seen is what I like best. Because I have a seat at the table. And I say, honestly, well, I didn't get a seat at the table, but I built my own table. And I'm inviting other people that are frustrated in the corporate world to come and join me at my table.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I love that. I love that. And getting, like you said, getting over the hurdle of the fear and things like that, because I never expected to be doing this. And I know you start your show with I hate video. I love it.
Yes. It, you know what? Like you're stepping out of your comfort zone, it confronts you with fear, right? Like that's what it is. And the fear can be debilitating. Um, and that's why I was stuck in the corporate world because it was my comfort zone.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I just had a question come to mind.
Mhm.
Growing up with the way your hips were, and knowing that things were a little bit different than somebody else, do you think that has actually helped you propel you out of your comfort zone to what you do now?
Hmm. I'm sure it did. I'm sure it had a contribution to where I am because I so I speak about Ubuntu, right? Which is it means I am who I am because of who we all are, right? And what that actually means to me, for me, like I actually take it a step further because I believe, people say you're the sum of the five people around you, and I believe even bigger than that because I believe that every person that has come alongside me at one point or another in my journey of life, they have made a contribution, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, whether it's big or small. So and I also believe that your experiences also shape you into who you are. So um with me being having gone through congenital hip dysplasia, I think what the biggest thing that it's contributed to who I am today is probably to be more curious and less judgmental.
I love that. I love that. There is so much judgment in the world today. It's not even funny. And I have to remind myself to just scroll, keep scrolling. Because I mean, I saw a couple posts today where I could have just like seriously, and I'm like, okay, it's not, it's, they're obviously where they're at for a reason, and where
Yes,
we're at for a reason.
yes,
And the personal growth that we've each experienced is different. So you just have to love the people where they're at, and sometimes that can be difficult, especially when um I don't know, somebody, I'm not sure who this is, loves what we're saying. Um, and it's true though. Like, and that, okay, so here's another thing that I learned really, really well in 2021: expectations.
mm,
Yeah. As soon as you said that, like, wow, right? Like, we all have expectations on our spouse, right? And sometimes we don't even realize it. But
yes,
you could be having a really crappy day, and all you want is a hug from your spouse, and your spouse looks at you and like wants to go watch TV or something, and
yes,
you don't get the response that you want, and then you're upset. But it's the expectation that you had,
Yep.
from that. And that was one of the biggest things that I had to overcome in 2021, because I expected my husband to act a different way. And but I, instead of acting out, I had to like bite my tongue, go to the bedroom, and message my friends. I'm like, okay, how do I get around this one? How do I get around this one? And 2021 for me was leveling up, like you said. I just said this the other day. We are the sum of the five people that we're surrounded with. So I have
Mhm.
leveled up in 2021, and I surrounded people that are not going to quit on, or will not let me quit on me, and rise me up above my expectations. So I love that you
Awesome.
said that, because that was my biggest overcoming in 2020.
Wow. You know, since you're speaking about that, I have to tell you, and this is like completely off topic, but
That's okay.
um, I've heard like, so we people often try to pinpoint what is the reason that something happens, right? Like whatever it is. And I remember listening to somebody, I think they were a marriage counselor, and he said, "What is the biggest killer of marriages? What leads to the highest rate of divorce?" And of course, like people had all sorts of answers, right? But you know what he said? And this is stuck to me. Like, honestly, I think this must have been, like, it's 2022 now. I think this must have been at least 5 years ago. And it stuck with me because it's so true. And his answer is actually, like, because people say, like, finances, sex, another person, whatever, right?
Yeah,
But the answer is unmet expectations.
yeah, I believe it.
And sometimes, well, most of the time, most
Gary
of
the
the
goat.
hello to Gary the goat.
Gary.
Most of the time, we don't level set our expectations, do we? A lot of people don't. They don't, they don't communicate what it is that they need from another person. But when that person does something, you actually have a lot of resentment towards them in your heart. But you don't realize that actually you didn't articulate that. So how can they know? Right?
Yeah, yeah. And Tim says, "Say live," and that is so true. We have to remember that we're not mind readers, so our
Yeah.
spouses are not mind readers, and that is so true. And like I said, one of the biggest things. And okay, so I got married late in life, very late in life,
Mhm.
and so I was very um independent, and um could do a lot of things by myself. So, and very
Yeah.
stuck in my ways. So I will admit, and my husband's the same way. Only, well, in some regards, and in some regards, not. So I had to really, marriage has made me grow to a whole new
Oh yeah.
level. With what you said, expectations and communication. And my parents were married for 47 years, and I could see in those times where their communication was, there was a breakdown in communication,
Hmm.
and I was their what do they call that? The scribes. So I would go back to the other one, back and forth, until I finally had enough and say, okay, you guys are married, you guys do it, you have the conversation. Um, so
Mm.
I could totally see, hey Russ,
Hi, Russ.
I could totally see that sometimes we don't communicate what they really are. Exactly. Oh, thanks,
Uh-huh.
Russ. You're
Thank
amazing too.
Yes, he absolutely is.
Absolutely. So that is funny. We've come from we've come around in full circle here.
Yeah, and
Expectations.
I think it's very challenging. Oh, thank you. Same to you, Russ.
Yes,
I
a
I
thousand
think
things.
yes, I think it's very challenging to be married on a whole, but even more so as you age, because as you grow older, you know more about what you like and what you don't like, right?
Yes.
So hats off to you. Like, I don't know if I could do it. I got married young, and I tell my husband all the time he's lucky he got me when he did.
Yeah. Well, I my husband's lucky. I've gone through a lot of different things because some of the things that we've faced in our marriage, it's like I've already gone through it with somebody else, so that I could help him in some of those areas, and
Wow.
it's I tell I tell people my husband is a little bit of my mother, my father, my brother, my uncle, and obviously his dad, but like my husband's a combination of all of those put
Wow.
together. So whatever I didn't overcome growing up, I'm overcoming now. I
Like,
love him. I love being married,
oh
but
yeah.
there are days that I would rather go sit in a corner with a good book.
Right. Yes, at least the book is not going to argue with you.
I can't believe I just said that.
No, but the thing is, like, Russ says he was blessed with a beautiful wife who puts up with him. Well, you know what? The thing is that we don't realize this, but we all have quirks. Everyone, no one is perfect.
No.
And, but, of course, like, and if you can live with anyone and their quirks will get to you, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a spouse because I can tell you, when I was at university, I lived with a friend of mine, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, because she would use our common space as if it was her own space. And I'd be like, so where's my spot? you know?
Yeah,
Yes, marriage is not
exactly.
easy. Yes. Yes,
Exactly.
but the one good thing about it is marriage is a commitment.
Yes.
It's every day you wake up and you decide that you're gonna, first of all, love is also a commitment. Like, it's an act, it's a doing word.
Hmm.
It's a verb, right? Like, it's something that you have to decide that you're doing every day because you're making that commitment.
Yeah.
And for me, the commitment is not just to my husband. It's because I said those vows before God. And it's
Yep.
that commitment that I made to him as well, right? So, but yeah, like living with anyone, yeah, it can be challenging. And when it's somebody that you're very close, in close quarters with, and now throw the pandemic into the mix, like, really?
I
Yeah.
just came off 9 day vacation. Yes, he had to work half days for 3 or 4 of those days.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm used to, like, because I'm
Yes.
gone at the house 11 hours, and then I come into my studio, and we may have an hour or two together, but usually that's me cooking and him catching up. Like he's a supervisor, so he's busy all day, and he's likes to just relax when he comes home, so which is
Mhm.
fine. Um, but he is the only man that can make me laugh like he does. Like I could be like really mad at him, and then he'll make a face, and I just start laughing. And he's good that way. I'm okay. So I at one point was uber serious, and he's kind of made me less serious, and I'm kind of getting him to go a little bit serious. So one day we'll meet in the middle, but it's fun, like you said. Marriage is, I love what you said. It's marriage is choosing each day to be with that person and to be committed to that person and to work things out. And it's not, like you said, it's not always easy, but it's worth it.
Yes.
And there's a saying, it's cheaper to keep her. So
Oh, thank you. I'll take note of that one.
I learned that from one of my, I think it was my brother. My brother actually said that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I've heard people say similar things, but yeah, never heard that one.
Yeah. Wow. I won't go into the context of what it was for, but it was he was giving advice to one of his friends who the wife was taking him for a ride and a half, and he's like, it's cheaper to keep her. So that's what the context was in that. Like, yeah, welcome, my friend.
Prices.
Ah, that is no, I can't get that out of my head. Oh,
Oh,
well, okay. So, what other pearls of wisdom were we going to hear from the amazing Ingrid tonight?
my gosh, what amazing! Like, I'm just an ordinary girl from South Africa. Like, but you know, something that's really been a highlight for me this past year was just the people that I've grown with and gotten to know over the past year. There's Russ and Tim and Lygia and and for me, like, community is everything.
Yeah.
Community is everything. I'm one of those people that um, I just love people. I can't tell you why. I mean, I have been disappointed in my life,
Hmm.
right? We've all had disappointments, I'm no exception. But I try to remember that it's a person that, and just try not to judge them.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So, when did you come from South Africa to Ontario, Canada? Then, because I know you and I are only like 3.5 hours away from each other.
yes, yes. I landed here in 2006.
Ooh,
So, yeah, 15 years. It was 15 years this November.
nice.
And it was a rude awakening.
Welcome to Canada.
Like I told you, I landed in November. And I remember there were lots of things that I had to prepare, um, prepare like my mind for. Like, people don't realize all the different things that are part of immigrating. And I was young when I immigrated, but I will say, like, it wasn't necessarily like easy, leading up to it. Because I lived in South Africa. I was born and raised there. And I remember, like, I would, I would be just going along my regular day, and then I'd be like, oh, there's still that. There's this that I need to think about. And I remember the worst thought that I ever had prior to coming here was I woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. And because I realized that the currency is different and I have to get used to different kinds of money.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow, like, you don't realize that there's so much that goes into um, just immigrating. And for me, the main thing when I immigrated was my mindset. I had to have that ready, because after that, I've learned of so many who have immigrated here and then moved back to wherever they came from because they just couldn't. But for me, coming here, people say to me, like, oh, it's so cold. Are you sure you want to go there? And I remember thinking, well, how cold could it actually be? Well, I found out one February day.
It
I
was -11 this morning.
Oh, that's nothing. I'll tell you the story because it's funny. My Because our eldest daughter was 4 when I immigrated here, and so I had to get up and take her to school. And even though, like, at that point, I wasn't working. It must, I think, yeah, it was probably early February. And I remember um, at that point, I didn't know that you're supposed to check out on the news how cold it is. So I just got dressed like regular, and I mean, I dressed for cold, yeah, but anyway, I got dressed and I got my daughter dressed and we walked out the door. And I think I didn't even go a full block. And I looked down at my daughter and I said, "I'm sorry, my child, you're not going to school today." And we turned back and went back home. And my husband, at that time, he was working shifts. So he worked a night shift that day. So, he was still sleeping. And obviously I was cold, right? So I got undressed and I got back into bed with him. And he heard the TV because, of course, my daughter's now not going back to sleep. So he heard the TV in the living room and he says, "Why is the TV on?" I said, "Because Dana's thing." He's like, "She needs to go to school." I said, "Yes, but it's so cold. I can't." And he's like, "But what are you going to do when you have to go to work?" I was like, "I don't know." And I thought, this guy has no empathy for what I'm going through. And I said, "Where did you bring me to?" And he said to me, he said, "You need to get used to it because, like, this is really like reality. This is what it's really like."
Mhm.
And I said, "But don't you remember I'm fresh off the boat?" And he just laughed at me. But I'll tell you, it was minus 42.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a little bit chilly to walk out with no coat, my dear.
I
Yes.
was no, I was wearing a coat and
Um,
boots and everything. Like, I was really dressed, but that didn't matter because guess what?
yeah.
It was just so cold.
Okay. So that's hilarious that you said that. So on the weekend I went for a walk and it was 3 degrees Fahrenheit here.
Okay.
And but when I come back,
Mm.
I my my body was cold. So I went to go give my husband a hug and he starts freaking out. "Oh my god, you're so cold. You're so cold." And so I was talking to my girlfriend who lives in Chicago. And I said, "Yeah, it was 3 degrees." And she goes, "You're truly a Canadian." And I said, "It didn't feel cold, but after walking for 45 minutes, my body, you can feel it on my body, right?" So she goes, "Spoken like a true Canadian. It's the only one I know that thinks that 3 degrees is not that cold." And I'm just like,
But the thing is, so do you think in Fahrenheit?
that's in Fahrenheit, yeah.
Okay,
That's
so I need to tell you in Fahrenheit what I'm talking about because yeah, okay. So it's minus 43.6 in Fahrenheit.
oh my
That's what I was
gosh.
thinking. Yeah, yeah,
I didn't realize it got that cold there.
yeah. It was with the wind chill, but it was really that cold.
Oh, it's winter, yeah. Yeah, and well, Toronto can be a snow belt or not. It kind of depends. It's hit or miss. Like London's a snow belt
Yeah,
between the two. Like it's in between the two of us.
yeah.
But Windsor, yeah, Windsor's not too bad. It's just like
Well,
Detroit. And it's funny that you said that because I've talked to so many people that are in Detroit and they think that we live in igloos. And I was like, seriously, dude? I said it's the same temperature.
yes, because Detroit is like right over the water.
Yes, exactly. So it's funny because I just said that actually on the last show. Somebody was like, "Well, what made you think that people would actually think you live in igloos?" I'm like, "Because they tell me." It's like I don't live in Saskatchewan or in not Nunavut. I don't live up there. I
Yeah,
live here.
yeah. I've being from South Africa, I remember like people would say to me like, "But you're not black." I remember like that was people in the States that would say that to me, and then I'd be like, "What? What do you mean?" But because in South Africa, like I know that I'm not black. I'm of mixed descent, right? Like so, I don't identify as being black or white. I'm mixed. Um, but yeah, I was told that, but you're not black. And then I would, if I tell people that I used to actually joke about being from South Africa, and tell them things like, yes, I need to go and feed my pet lion. I'll be right back. And they believe me. They believe me. Yeah.
There are some people that would believe that. I totally get that. There are some people that would totally believe that.
Yes.
Absolutely. Craziness. Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. So I'm just reading the rest of here.
Mhm.
Um, so tell us more. You have actually a couple shows, right? You have your Friday morning show.
Yes.
So tell us about that. And then you started another one too, didn't you? With 5 other
Yes.
people?
With 4 other people, yes.
4 other people, sorry.
No, that's fine. So my show is, like I said, I hate video. I really do. Because like I hate the way, I don't know, like I just, yeah, I'm very, I think maybe because I'm just, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I just don't like video. But the reason why I have shows is because I want to show up and help others to, to get to where they want to be. Um, and so my show is called Inspiration from Ingor because I wanted to inspire people to be able to achieve their dreams, and do things that they thought they never could. Um, and I have 11 pillar words, but the word that I'm focused on right now is ubuntu, that I already spoke about. And I don't know when I'll change. Like I thought about changing a few times, like changing my focus. But speaking about ubuntu, which is basically about community and collaboration and networking, to me, that's a really important topic. And I think I still have a few episodes left for that one. And then I have a show it happens, and that show actually happens every Friday. And then I have another one that I started with 4 other people, and it's called Live with Five. And that happens every second Tuesday. We have an episode coming tomorrow morning. Um, and Live with Five is the whole point of Live with Five is to affect positive change, um, in the world today. And we do it through our superpowers because we each have a superpower, um, that we feel will help people to affect positive change.
I love that.
Thank
I love that. And yeah, girl, don't change it. I love it. I love
thank
it. The
you.
positive change and, just like you said, community and connection is definitely where it's at. And it's funny because I really was more on Facebook until I made the switch kind of in May of last year,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden, um, I got this prompting. I woke up and God's like, LinkedIn, LinkedIn, LinkedIn. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what's there. I just thought it was a place to put my resume up there, get a job. And that's what I actually thought it was about. Absolutely not even close. LinkedIn is like a community, it's like a family, and it's like Inger said, it's totally 100% connections. I met Inger through there, who's an amazing friend, and Russ and Tim, also Jennifer Zahari and Dr. Christy. I've met through there too, which are like they're like sisters, and
Wow.
it's and then I got like a whole other community out of that just from the connecting on LinkedIn, and yeah, some of those like all of those friendships have helped me get through the toughest time last year. Like
Wow.
and would not have gotten through it as well as I did without everybody's support and connection. So if you think LinkedIn is a waste of time, I'm here to tell you that it's not. Because there is just a lot of powerful people on there that are just wanting to connect and to help each other and build each other up, and that's to me what it's all about. And I love that you're doing that.
Thank you. I have to tell you that what you're saying about, oh, thank you. I love you, Ligia. Um, what you're saying about LinkedIn was the same for me. I used LinkedIn for years, and I had it there. Basically, it was a reflection of my resume. And for people to see my recommendations and my skills. Like really, that was what I'd use it for. And I didn't post. And then I started posting in 2018, I think, before I lost my job. And then I would just post like, randomly. I apologize. It's live and my dogs are barking.
Well, I'm surprised you can't hear my stepson.
My husband just came home, so that's why they're barking. But um, so yeah, with LinkedIn, I use LinkedIn just randomly whenever the inspiration hit me. And in January of last year, God told me that I needed to start utilizing it in a different way. And I started I started on February 1st. And I grew my LinkedIn like crazy. And not by me pursuing anything. It was just me giving. And that's what LinkedIn is about. Like anybody that thinks differently, I don't know, but it's LinkedIn is about, just connecting with people and giving.
Yeah,
It's about what you can give, not about what you can get.
absolutely, absolutely, and you totally nailed it on the head. Oh, I did share Lydia's there.
Mm.
She's absolutely amazing, 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 amazing,
I met
and
Lydia here. I met her through LinkedIn,
yeah,
and I've yeah, I there's so many people that I connected with that it's not just a superficial connection, but heart to heart, right? That's
that's
what
right.
life is about.
Yeah, people say B2B, but it's heart to heart, H
Yeah.
to H. Ah, I love that.
And that's why I'm part of the nonprofit called H2HB, which is Heart to Heart Business.
Oh, wow. Okay, so there's another thing I have to ask because on your LinkedIn profile, you have the lion after it. What does that stand for?
It stands for LinkedIn Open Connector, Open Networker.
Ah, I wondered because I've seen it a couple times, but I'm like, I have no idea what that means.
I actually removed it a few weeks ago because I feel like there's a negativity around that, around people that use that. And I feel like people keep you at an arm's length because you use that. So I removed it and I'll see what happens.
Well, it's whatever you feel is necessary. I'm shutting the fan
Yeah.
off because now I'm cold.
Okay. Yes. I turned mine away already.
Oh, did you?
Yes, because we're sitting, right?
Here we are in minus 10 degree weather where we were both sweating before the show, and I had to put my fan on, and I was having a hot flash galore. And yes, Canadian women get hot flashes.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. And honestly, it's so bizarre. I never thought that I would ever feel this heat in this weather, but yes, it happens.
It happens. And Melody agrees with you.
Thank you.
Uh, yes, and Legia agrees. Amazing communities is about giving. The more we give, the more contentment we receive. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So I have to ask, what is your word for 2022?
It's collaboration.
Collaboration. I love that. So are there going to be more collaborative shows coming?
I don't know if I have the capacity for a collaborative show, like another one.
Hmm.
But I want to be able to collaborate and build with people like where it's mutually beneficial. So that's why. Just build a community, see where it takes us.
I love that. Collaborate.
What
All
about
right.
you? What about you? I know I'm being interviewed, but can you tell me what's yours?
Well, it's funny. I had the word and then I forgot what it was. So I think I'm trying to think of I had a really good one the other day, and it was all about, oh, that's what it was, allowing. I have a
Mm.
tendency to work, and I don't allow the things to come in. Um, and I had a huge epiphany on New Year's Eve morning where I am the oldest in my family, and I'm the oldest daughter, sibling, and grandchild. And so my entire life was spent.
Mm.
Everybody comes to me because I'm Miss Fix It, all right, and um, this last season of my life, I took a step back, and my dad took care of my mom through like their entire marriage, and they were together for 50 years and married for 47. And I figured that when he passed, I would have to take that over. And she has shocked me. But I've taken a step back, and I've allowed her to be the person that she needs. And I've allowed my brother, because my brother would do the same thing. Hey, Dorothy Ann, I need help with this. Like he had kids. Um, I was never blessed with kids of my own, but I'm blessed with my stepson. So I helped raise his children to some capacity.
Mhm.
Um, so Auntie would always step in to save her nephew's bums. Well,
Mhm.
now they're 19 and 18, and they make their own decisions, and some of the decisions I don't agree with. But instead, I've
Mhm.
just allowed things to be as they are, and I'm there for them when they need me. And I'm there for my brother when he needs a sounding board. And I've just stepped back and I've allowed them. And as a matter of fact, I haven't even followed up with them on the situation that they were dealing with before Christmas. And I just listened to both of them. And I'm just like stepping back. And I've never done that. So in 45 years, I've just allowed myself to be who I am without stepping in. And it has been incredible, actually. It's like a weight
Wow.
has fallen off my shoulders. And because I used to be take way too much on. And but I realized by me doing that, and by me being what's the word? Oh, there's a special word for it. It starts with an A. I forget. Oh, it's like right
Mm.
there. It will come to me. Enabler. When you're an enabler, because that's what I was doing. I was enabling them in their mess. Um, then you get caught up in it. So I've
Yeah.
quit being the enabler. I've allowed you want to make the choices. You make the choices, but you face the consequences of your choices by yourself.
Wow.
Yeah, that that was another huge thing for me. So I'm continuing now that I've recognized it. Like on New Year's Eve, I recognized what I've been doing. So now that I've recognized it, I'm going to continue my 2022 with just stepping back and allowing what God has for me instead of having to control it to like the nth degree, because I'm kind of a control freak. But I'm stepping back from that too.
Well, you can now call yourself a recovering control freak.
That's right. I'm a recovering control freak.
Mhm. Um, I can relate, but I think if I had stayed in South Africa, I probably would have been like you.
Yeah.
But because I've been here and I left when one of my brothers was a teenager, I think. Yeah, I think my brother was a teenager, like 19, and the other one was 23. So, when I left, they were younger and they had to be self sufficient.
Yeah.
But I know that because of who I am, yeah, it wouldn't have been that way if I was there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's hard, and then
yeah.
you I should have. There's some situations I should have got more involved in when they were younger, but I didn't. I was just allowing.
Mm,
And then now that I'm thinking back, I'm like, well, you probably should have here, but you probably shouldn't have here. So it probably equaled out anyways in the end. And I can't go back anyways.
yeah.
But all I can say is in the last couple years, I've really realized that our parents tried to do better than what their parents did. And we tried to do the best that we could with what we knew. And I have to throw that part in is what we know, because we only do the best that we can with what we know, and then when we know differently we can change that. And that was a huge, since the pandemic hit, that was a huge awakening for me, because I grew up where my dad like was very strict. Like, you never, if you, he said no the first time, you never ever asked a second time, ever.
I'm laughing because I had the same kind of thing, but my kids ask me
Yeah,
more. So I guess I'm not that strict.
yeah. And well, if you did ask again, you got hit. And I'm not saying you got beat,
No.
but you know, the kids
Hmm.
nowadays, they ask and ask and ask, and then you tell them to shut up and leave you alone, and they still at you. And it's just like you go into your corner crying. And
Right.
and you think, what have I become? This is not who my dad raised me to be. And anyways, yeah. So
I have
it's funny because I had to take a serious look. I took a serious look at my grandmother and my mom, and I'm like, oh, that's why this is. And oh, that was huge moments for me in 2021. It's like I could see it. And I'm like, okay, we're breaking this generational curse off me, because this is where it stops. And yeah, it was a powerful year in more ways than one.
awesome. I have a friend, my friend Gail. She says this: when we know better, we do better.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. I totally 100% agree. Because you
And we
can't,
must.
yeah. Well, like you said, you don't know what you don't know till you know it. So,
Yes. Um, I was a lecturer. I know we want to wrap up. I was a lecturer, and a lot of my students came from a different background to me. So when we would have discussions, yes, insights can take time to come. When we would have discussions in class, a lot of the time they came with this perspective that we do this because it's a tradition. We do this because our forefathers did it before us.
yeah.
And I mean, this was a time when I didn't really use the internet for research. So I actually made up a story to depict for them how ridiculous that actually is. And I told them, and I would like to share the story with you. There once was a young girl who was learning to cook from her mom, and they were making a chicken. And her mom took her through the whole part of prepping the chicken, cleaning it, etc., etc., right? And then her mother cut part of the chicken off. And the girl said, Mom, why are you doing it like this? And the mother said, Ah, this is the way that your grandmother taught me. And the girl said, Okay. So the next time she saw her grandmother, she said, Grandma, I was learning to do this with mom. And she cut off this part of the chicken, and I want to know why. And the grandma said, Uh, that's the way that my mother taught me. And the girl was privileged enough to have a great grandmother to ask. So the next time she saw her great grandmother, she said, Great grandma, I was doing this with my mom, learning to cook a chicken, and she cut off part of the chicken. And, she said that she learned it from my grandmother. And my grandmother said she learned it from you. So can you tell me why you did that? So the great grandmother says, Well, you know, when I was a young girl and learning to cook, our ovens were too small, and that's why we cut that part of the chicken off. And I said, you see, the thing is, we develop traditions based upon our circumstances right now, right?
Mhm.
But and then we pass it on to the generations after us. But if those generations just adapt or adopt those traditions, right? And they don't question why it is done, we'll just be people cutting off parts of chickens that we don't understand, right? We don't understand why we're doing it, but we're just doing it.
Right.
So you can question, you can always question why people do things, and as long as it's done in a respectful way, right?
Right.
But never, you don't just have to do things just because it was always done.
Exactly. I love that. And it's funny because I was laughing as you're telling the story because I heard it, but it was with a ham.
Oh, really? And that time I didn't have the internet to be researching stuff. So, like, I just thought about it off the top of my head. I don't know where it came from.
That is hilarious. I love it.
Thank
Wow.
you.
It has been an absolute pleasure. Oh,
Oh,
thank you,
thank
Lydia.
you. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show tonight, Inger,
Thank you.
and thank you to our amazing guests for being here tonight as well.
Mm.
And I just have to say, is there any last words that you have for our guests this evening?
Um, I would like to say that, we connect with each other on LinkedIn, on Facebook, whatever. And a lot of the time, people just connect with you because you're adding to their numbers. But I'd like us to take it a step further and think about, you know, really think about the fact that that is another person, not just a number. And I want to remind you about what Maya Angelou once said: people will forget what you say and they'll forget what you do, but they'll always remember how you make them feel.
Absolutely. I love that.
Thank you.
And I don't know of any better way to end the show than that. So
So,
thank you again for being here. Like you said, we do have a special episode Thursday night at 7 o'clock to talk about the homelessness here in Windsor, and perhaps we can even help the rest of the communities around us eventually. And again, thank you, Inger, for tonight. You have been absolutely
it's my pleasure. Thank you for
like
having me.
what's come out of your mouth tonight has absolutely been incredible, and I do appreciate you being here. Another amazing show as always, and with that we'll wrap this up and we'll see you next Monday. Bye for
Thank
now,
you.
folks.